Okay, it looks like we're streaming live.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Lance Luke and Martin Pea, part of the Ask the Building Expert webinar series. We're happy to have you join us this morning. Thank you for the attendees that are on our Zoom platform. And also, we are restreaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if you have any comments or questions on whatever social media platform you're on, please post them. And if we don't get to them during this session, we'll be sure to respond shortly thereafter. So we have a interesting topic, reading and understanding soil reports. And there's two different things regarding the soil report, and reading is one of them, and then understanding is the other part of it. So you could read it, and sometimes, well, for the most part, for most people, it's like they're reading a different language, Greek or Latin or something. And the understanding part is more complicated. But I'm not going into specific details on how to read the report. I'm just going to give you some highlights because the best thing to do would be ask a professional who knows how to read the report and give you the synopsis. So I'm just kind of going through and trying to help you understand this whole process in a simplified format without getting too boring and confusing. So this webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection, which is a local Hawaii-based construction management company. It's probably the only commercial you're going to hear. Skip to that. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about? This webinar covers soil analysis fundamentals, getting you guys through interpretation of soil reports in a simpler format. Understanding soil properties is crucial for assessing site suitability, site conditions, planning construction methods, and ensuring safety and sustainability. So the objective is to have you guys kind of understand what's going on with the ground. And then after, I'll take any questions or deal with comments that come up. So the big question is, what are soil reports? Soil reports provide data about the composition, structure, and characteristics of soil at a specific site. And we're talking about buildings and construction here. The reports provide data to help engineers determine the characteristics of soil at a construction site, focusing on load-bearing capacities, stability, and drainage potential. The key data points we're going to cover: composition, elements in soil such as sand, silt, clay, and organic matter, moisture content, the amount of water present affects the soil stability to support weight, such as a building, a house, or a big building. Strength and density, indicators of the soil's ability to bear loads and resist, resist shifting. Soil reports are basically completed by a what's called a soils engineer or a geotechnical engineer. Okay, those two terms are pretty much mean the same thing. Importance of soil reports are essential for architects, engineers, those are your design consultants, and contractors to plan appropriate construction techniques. So very important before anything is built, right, you have the soil there. What's the condition of the soil? Is it able to support a house or a 40-story building, a huge hotel? You know, what's the deal here? You don't just clear the land and then start building. So why do soils reports matter anyway? Accurate soil data prevents costly mistakes in construction planning and site preparation. Soil reports ensure safe and structurally sound buildings, preventing foundation failure or settlement issues. Now, there's times where you may hear talk about foundation cracking or settling and those kind of things. That may be due to the soil condition. The factor of safety assurance, the report provides insights into ground stability, also crucial for projects involving heavy structures, like I mentioned, buildings, but also other types of structures like bridges. That's important too. So any kind of structure or building would be affected by the soil condition. Accurate soil data helps avoid unexpected costs related to foundation repairs, drainage issues, or settling. And that would be financial savings. Long-term planning, soil analysis can predict future risks like erosion, subsidence, enabling proactive measures. So it's good to know what's going on before anything's built. And that's why the soil report is very important. So the term soil report could be synonymous with soil investigation or a soil study and something like that. I don't know if you go drive around town and you see these big machines and they look like they're drilling into the ground. Well, they are drilling and they're drilling to get soil samples, and you see them all over. If you live in Honolulu, you can see them at a construction site or on the road. Let's say the rail route, you can see those kind of machines there getting soil samples. It's like a big drill. Okay, so that's what the deal is. Let's talk about understanding soil properties. There's different kind of textures of soil. You have sand, fine grains of sand. You have silt, which is grains of soil, but it's way bigger than sand. It could be tiny rocks, and then you also have clay particles. So there's sand, silt, and clay. The explanation of those is the sand is coarse particles, high drainage, but low water retention. So if you're at the beach and you see the wave coming up and you see the water on the sand, if you look long enough, the water just kind of disappears. What happens to it? It sinks into the sand, and that's because of the high drainage. So the sand does not retain water. It just lets the water drain through. Silt is medium particles, moderate drainage, and it does retain water, not as much as other textures, like such as clay. Clay is fine particles, low drainage, high water retention, and can expand or contract significantly. So the question here is, knowing the property of clay, would you want your house to be built on clay? Right? The property of the soil in this clay is expansion and contraction. So in other words, when it gets wet, let's say it rains, right? The soil condition, the clay expands, right? Gets bigger, and then let's say it dries out, it's a sunny day, it's summer, and now all of a sudden there's no water, and now you have all these cracks, like dry riverbed type cracks. So if your house is built on this type of material, you're going to have foundation issues. And that's why this is one of the worst conditions to build on. Okay, now, as opposed to you have hardly any soil and you have a lot of rocks, big boulders. If your house is built on the boulders that's stable, then it's really not going to move. Of course, this is general in nature. If there's a huge earthquake, everything may end up moving. So a recap: understanding soil properties, the soil structure, arrangement of soil particles affects water drainage, water retention, and so forth. Understanding soil properties. Why is it important in construction? Well, because the building, no matter what type it is, if it's a single-family house, if it's a duplex, apartment building, 40-story hotel, a huge mega shopping center, high-rise condominium or apartment building, a school, right? So any type of building, it's important to know what the soil condition is, because otherwise, if not, you're taking a risk. You're going to build something that may end up moving in the future. So the importance in construction, we're talking about soil texture influences drainage and stability. Poor soil structure can lead to waterlogging or compaction, impacting foundation integrity. Compaction means to put pressure on the soil and in making it more solid. That's what the compaction is. Now, this whole webinar, we're talking about soil conditions for buildings and construction. We're not talking about soil conditions for landscaping or agriculture or different things like that. So there's a difference. It's kind of similar, but when you're looking at soil condition to grow corn, soybeans, other kind of crops, right? The soil condition really makes a difference. But for the most part, you're growing vegetables or other things. You're not treating the soil like you're building something and you don't have a lot of heavy buildings on the area. Of course, if you're running a tractor, that's heavy, but it's the weight of the tractor versus talking about soil conditions for buildings, which you can't compare the weight of a tractor to a 40-story, huge high-rise condominium project. Understanding soil properties. Now, this gets kind of technical. Soil classification. Believe it or not, there's a classification system called USCS, which means United Soil Classification System. And this is important because you would understand, anybody reading the report, importance of classification and understanding the behavior of soil under load. So we're talking about soil that's just there. You have an empty lot. And now when you decide to put a building on it, that's considered the terminology of soil under load, because you have a load. You have a heavy load sitting on the soil. And it doesn't matter whether it's a house or a different kind of building. Okay. It's still load. The factor of the load, the weight of the load would be different, of course, in whatever type of building you're going to build on top that certain lot. So the structure, whatever it is, you need to know what soil condition it is to make sure you have a building that's going to stand and not suddenly sink or crack. And that's for the engineers to determine. So the two types of engineers that would be involved in foundation design and investigation would be the soil engineer or geotechnical engineer, and the structural engineer. The structural engineer would look at the soil report and design the foundation of the building accordingly. Now, there's another engineer called a civil engineer that would deal with drainage conditions and other factors like that. So there's actually 3 engineers involved: the soil geotechnical engineer, structural engineer, and the civil engineer. They all kind of work together on any given project. The influence on foundation design, the different soil textures require different foundation types, such as shallow foundation for stable soils and deep foundations for loose or expansive soils. Now, expansive soils is similar to that clay soil where it expands and contracts, and that's what's called expansive soil. There's a term used in Hawaii, and it's called adobe soil. If you have adobe soil, that's the worst case situation with regard to soil conditions. Water management, soil with poor drainage can lead to water accumulation, creating pressure against the foundation of the building. And then erosion control. Certain soil textures are more prone to erosion, which can undermine foundation over time. So if you have very soft soil and your house is built on that, say you're on a mountain, every time it rains and you have poor drainage, some of the dirt under your house may erode or wash away, and that's not a very good situation. So the soil classification, okay, was developed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it classifies the soil based on the texture and cohesiveness. And the classification categories are coarse grained soil, which is sand and gravel, fine grained soil, silts and clays, highly organic soil, peat and muck. And so the highly organic soil, it's basically almost no foundation. You cannot compact it, and you don't want to build on that. It's like building on a mud bog or something. So the application, the classification helps determine load-bearing capacity, drainage behavior, and necessary construction precautions. So the engineer is going to design the foundation of the building based on the soil condition. Now, there's situations where the soil is so bad that it has to be excavated and then new, better soil brought in and compacted to the right formula. Okay, so understanding soil properties, a case study that I'm going to talk about. So maybe I'll talk about the case study a little later. Let's see what else we have here. Key elements of a soil report, components of a soil report. We have it laid out over here. So your soil profile, which is layers of soil and their characteristics, soil classification, determining soil types, if it's sand, silt, clay, their impact on load-bearing capacity. Now, there's also different other types of soil classifications. There could be, more rock, hard rock, things like that, but we're just dealing with these main ones. Compaction level. Compaction testing ensures soil is compacted enough to support construction load. So let's say you have a lot with a certain type of soil. Okay, you bring in equipment to compact it, and if you compact it, it can be compacted, then that's good. If it can't be compacted to the degree that the engineer needs, then something's going on. Either it's the wrong type of soil or there's too much water in it. So at times you may let it dry out, or if it's that bad, you're going to have to excavate that soil out and bring in what's called engineered fill. That's better soil, and that type of soil can be compacted to what you need. The compaction basically forces the soil to be more solid, and then you could build your foundation or footing on top of that. High moisture content can lead to soil expansion or contraction, affecting building stability. So if your house is built on expansive soil, when it rains, the soil is gonna expand, and then when it dries out, it's gonna contract. So the soil is gonna constantly be moving uh, due to the weather. And when the soil moves, your foundation can move. It can move by virtue of cracking. It can move by virtue of shifting or sinking. You could have one area of the house that's lower than the other, and that's caused by soil settlement and that kind of condition. So, which is not very good, because in order to fix it, if you have a concrete slab, you're going to have to do other types of repairs, versus if your house is an older house, built single wall construction on tofu blocks, let's say, it's easier to fix, jack up the house a little and fix the foundation, level it off, and things like that. So believe it or not, there's actually soil maps. Evaluating soil maps helps identify areas prone to landslides, erosion, and things like that. So it's sort of like a map for history, and you have, you know, countries and areas, but then designated bad soil areas and all that. So it's more detailed, and you don't really have to know everything about this. But the soil maps in construction planning, these maps highlight areas prone to instability, helping in the selection of safe building sites. So if the area is prone to erosion and landslides, right, that's a red flag. So you don't want to build anything there. Environmental insight soil maps often indicate soil erosion, risk damage, drainage, quality, organic matter, content, essentially for suitable development. So the map would say, oh, this is a mud bog here, and you can't build on it. It may be preservation, conservation zone, even if it's zoned for residential. The soil condition may be so bad that you can't build on it. It's too expensive. And then also practical use for engineers, right? They can adjust construction methods and materials based on the soil map data, such as reinforcing foundations in erosion-prone areas. So there's a lot of information here. What does the engineer do when they actually get the test results, right? So how do they test it? They have to take soil samples and analyze it with a microscope and look at the content and everything. So soil suitability, using soil data to determine if the site is suitable for construction. In other words, can the property support a foundation? And if so, what kind of foundation? Can it support a single-family house? Right? If so, that's good. Can it support a 40-story huge condominium development? Well, maybe not, but we're not sure. So let's look into this some more. The influence on construction methods and materials. You have loose soil, which requires deeper foundations or soil stabilization. You have dense soil may allow for more straightforward foundation design. So the loose soil versus harder soil, okay, that's what the difference is. The loose soil requires deeper or reinforced foundations, such as piles, to prevent settling. The dense soil allows for simpler, shallow foundations, potentially reducing costs. Material selection, soil stability affects the choice of materials, like using moisture-resistant materials in clay-rich areas. Okay, so that's the difference. Foundation failure prevention, avoiding collapse by addressing soft soil during site preparation. Now, here's the key. If you don't address the condition of the soil and you start building on it, you're taking a huge risk, because you don't know what the bearing capacity of the soil is, right? So it's a really unknown situation. Addressing soft soil, loose or compressible soil should be stabilized or reinforced to avoid settlement issues. Preventive methods, soil stabilization techniques such as compaction, adding binders like cement or lime or other kind of chemicals in the soil, or using structural supports like geogrids or fabric and things like that to stabilize or make the soil stronger. Common issues regarding soil condition: compaction problems. Poorly compacted soil leads to foundation settlement. Now, I mentioned buildings, right, or bridges, but you need to know what the soil condition is too. Also, if you're constructing roads, roadways, parking lots, things like that, that has a effect on your roadway. So even if it's concrete, you still need to be aware. If it's asphalt, have you noticed that when you're driving around a road or in a parking area of a shopping center, you have these dips in the road where you're driving, or these potholes and all that? That could be a soil condition issue. It also could be a poorly laid asphalt or material problem, but most times it's a soil condition. And then you have drainage considerations, how improper drainage can cause long-term structural issues. So if you have a site that is not draining properly, you have water ponding around against the foundation, that's not a good condition either, right? So let me see what else I have. So we're going to talk about soil and environmental sustainability. Soil properties influence sustainability, especially in terms of water retention, erosion, and vegetation support. Poor soil management can lead to long-term environmental issues like increased erosion or water pollution. So have you ever noticed that after heavy rain and you go to streams or you go to the ocean and you see the water is not blue or clear, it's really murky and dirty? That's from erosion, right? The soil from other areas get eroded and end up in the streams and rivers. And where does it lead to, right? If you're living in Honolulu, you got the Alawai Canal and other tributaries that are just filled with silt and bad stuff. Kaneohe Bay, other areas where you can see after a storm, you know, the water is basically brown. And that's the ocean where we used to go and fish and swim in, right? Nobody likes brown water. Let's talk about environmental impact assessments. Incorporating soil data into EIAs help ensure that construction projects meet environmental standards. So the EIA means environmental impact assessment. Soil stability plays a role in preventing erosion and ensuring water management. So you want to make sure, right, the role of soil data in an environmental impact assessment ensures projects meet environmental standards and it address erosion, habitat impact, water management. If you have wildlife, fauna, birds and even plants and things like that, that's something to consider. The soil stability role in an environmental impact statement. Stability assessment helps prevent erosion, particularly near water bodies or steep slopes. So all that is taken into consideration. Incorporating soil data into planning. Site design, use soil data to inform where and how buildings should be placed. And then there's a risk mitigation. Address any potential soil issues before construction starts, such as ensuring proper drainage or adjusting foundation design. Sometimes due to the soil investigation, soil test results, the structural engineer has to change his foundation design to accommodate the information that was derived from the soil study. And sometimes the developers have to pay extra because these are unknown situation. Problematic soil conditions. Soil stabilization, methods to improve soil stability, like adding reinforcement or compacting the soil. You have drainage systems, installing proper drainage to handle water runoff and prevent foundation damage. Now, this is where the civil engineer comes in, because let's say you're developing a huge subdivision. You cannot just divide up and make lots without considering the drainage condition. During heavy rain, thunderstorm, where's the water going to go, right? You have to have a system of drainage, your curbs, gutters, and so forth. The water is just not just going to sink into the ground, right? Some of it will, but not all of it if you have heavy rain. So I got information about a real world case study, and then probably give you more information. There was this condominium building that had asphalt connected to a concrete parking deck. And the parking deck, there was a basement level, so there was a below grade wall. The below grade wall was determined to have failure of their waterproofing. As a result, every time it rained, water would be seeping into their electrical room and through the walls. Okay, so that was a known condition. So in order to waterproof that wall, right, you have to excavate, because this is below grade. It's like in the ground. So the contractor excavated the soil, which was never touched since the building was built. Excavated the soil, waterproofed the wall. They went down about maybe 15 feet, waterproofed the wall. They backfilled soil. They put in new asphalt, and then within a week or two, the asphalt started sinking. And so they they came in and brought new asphalt and kind of patched the sinking area. And guess what? It continued to sink. So it was determined that something's going on with the soil. So we had to do soil investigation, soil studies, where they drilled through the asphalt to get to the soil condition, send the samples to the lab, and have a soil study done. And it was determined that there was too much moisture in the soil. So the bottom line was that all that soil that was backfilled had to come out. Well, not all of it, but maybe up to 4 feet or so, the area that was sinking. And then we had to bring in new soil called engineered fill that could be properly compacted. And then we used a geogrid system, and then new asphalt, and that seemed to do the trick. So that was a situation where we missed getting test results early on, and the remedial fix was costly. Now, here's another one. that had to do with a single family house. A brand new house was built in Kaimaki, and the walls were CMU block tile, and the house was settling, and they had drywall cracks, cracks in the drywall, cracks in the CMU blocks where the grout joint was, and cracks in the ceiling drywall, and then even in the concrete slab. So I was hired as an expert witness on that case because the homeowner was suing the contractor. And, when I get the call, they said, oh, this is real bad. It's like big cracks in the house. And I'm thinking, sometimes homeowners try to exaggerate because they don't know. So it could be like a small crack, and I'll go there and look at it. And it's totally different from what I understood it to be from the homeowner. So I get there, I said, well, let's go into one of the bedrooms and see this big crack you're talking about. And so sure enough, there was no, well, the grout was there, but the CMU blocks that are supposed to be together had separated, and the crack was big enough where I could see light coming in. And I go closer, and guess what? I see the neighbor watering his yard. That's how big the crack was. And I'm thinking, okay, this homeowner really wasn't exaggerating. So I took my pictures, I made a report and all that, and I told the attorney, I want to see all the records of construction. And come to find out, there was no soil test done, no soil report, and they just poured the concrete slab. And so when the deposition was taken of the general contractor, he stated that there was an old house there before that was demolished to build the new house. So therefore, because the old house was there and it was standing, no problem, he felt that he didn't need to do a soil report. So he never even advised the homeowner, to get a soil report. Instead, he said, oh, you don't need one because the house was there already and we're just building another house. Come to find out, the house that was there was an old house built in the 1940s, and it was 920 square feet, single wall construction. Okay, that's the old house. The new house was 3,000 square feet, right? 2 stories, concrete slab, CMU wall construction. So, I mean, anybody would know that the load factor of the house that was there was less than 1,000 square feet, right? 1 story, single wall construction would be less than the new house being built at 3,000 square feet, 2 stories, right? So it's kind of a no-brainer. I'm like, well, this contractor messed up by assuming that he didn't need a soil study. Even if to protect his butt, he should have said, even if he was dumb, right? He should have told the owner, you know what? Although the old house was there, you gotta get a soil study. So he was guilty because he never got a soil study. He never forced the owner to do it. He didn't have to pay for it. He could have told the owner, you know what? You have to hire an engineer and get a soil test done so I know how to build the house, but he didn't. So that's why he ended up losing the case. Well, it ended up being settled, but there was enough evidence against him for being negligent. And even his subcontractor, when the subcontractor had his deposition taken, he said, oh yeah, when I started digging the soil to lay the footing, I noticed that the soil condition was not that good, was not optimum, was bad. So the attorney asked the question, well, given that soil condition, if you were the general contractor, would you build on that soil? And his answer was no. So we basically use a subcontractor to kind of testify against the general contractor. But anyway, those are situations where you need to be very careful about the soil conditions. Now, let me throw in this other one for good measure. There's a high-rise condominium building in San Francisco called the Millennium Tower, and that tower is sinking. And there were like major lawsuits. And the location is a financial district of San Francisco, but if you look on the map, the financial district, San Francisco is surrounded by water right at the coast area. It used to be a swamp before. So the design of that high-rise building, they didn't put their footings, their piles, all the way to hit bedrock. It was short. And that's the reason why the building was sinking, because there was no stability. And they didn't want to, I think they went down 100 to 150 feet, but bedrock is like 300 to 400 feet. So they just didn't design accordingly. So anyway, those are the case studies. So be aware, anytime you drive around and you see tower cranes and you see construction, just know that there was a soil test, a soil study done earlier before they even started construction. So that's it in a nutshell. What you missed, we've given plenty of different webinars on different subjects. You can go to our website. What's coming up? Next webinar, we're talking about the Florida building collapse. I got some new information on that. The Florida building collapse, Surfside in 2021, but there's still, the government's still not finished with their investigation. So I'll be talking about that. If you go to our website, askbuildingexpert.now.site, we have a whole bunch of different websites you can check out. We have our National Building Expert blog on that website. The webinars, like I mentioned, on different kind of topics. I wrote a bunch of books. Right now, you could get the books for free, downloading it through our website. That's going to change soon. The books are also available for purchase on Amazon, but since Martin and I occasionally need lunch money, we want people to buy some of the books on Amazon, but we're generous and we have it up there for free for you, so take advantage. You might, even if you don't have time to read it now, you might just want to download it and capture it now. So when we change to you have to buy the book, you already have it free. I have a special website, constructionexperts.now.site. And then here's the Q&A section. So hopefully you guys got questions that I'm going to try to answer. So I'd like to turn it over to Martin now. And I see he's still awake. He never fell asleep or got bored, even if I was talking about all these different soil conditions. And it may get boring. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking about accounting or structural engineering or something. But this is good stuff to know. You don't have to be expected to know all the details. You just got to be expected to know that there needs to be a soil investigation, a soil study before a building's built, right? And if there's problems, what do you do? If you have questions, you call the engineer who did the soil report. So, Martin, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, Lance. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, good.
I didn't fall asleep. It's interesting. It's a kind of a story all about dirt and junk like that you got to make sure you test. Yeah, so good. So we got some questions. So let me give you the first one here. Our viewer's asking, what are the most common red flags to look for in the soil report before starting a construction project?
Okay, you look at the let's say you don't want to read the whole report because it may be 30 pages, 50 pages. I've seen one that was 250 pages. I look at the table of contents or the index, and then I look at the summary page. And I want to see what that engineer is saying. I'm looking for, is the soil condition suitable for building whatever is planned to build on this specific site? If not, what can be done? Okay, it's either the engineer is going to say the soil condition is not suitable for building anything. Or it may say it would be suitable to build, provided the following conditions are met. Number one, we need to reinforce the soil by different options, different means. Number two, we need to excavate X amount of yards of soil and bring in better soil, engineered fill and compact it. So it could be done, but it may be more costly. But the worst is you get a report that says it's so bad, the house is not suitable. I mean, the property is not suitable for building a house on. I've seen one where it was a cliff and the soil condition was not that good. And in the future, you have erosion, and pretty soon half the lot is gone. It fell off the cliff. So if you build a house and half your house is going to be gone, that's not good. I've seen pictures where they had a big backyard with a swimming pool, and the swimming pool actually fell off the cliff. It just cracked. And so there's situations where it's just not suitable, and it could be various factors, like, you know, it's in a mud bog, it's in a swamp, or it's too close to the river and the soil's bad or something like that. So and also call up the engineer and say, I just need, in layman's terms, can you explain to me what this whole study says? And a lot of times, they're happy to explain it to you. So that's what you look for, or you have a third party person that's familiar with reading soil reports, read it, and then tell you what you can do or what you can't do. So that's the thing. Just hire other experts. I don't expect you to be reading the report yourself and try to understand everything. It's especially when they have all these graphs and like a spreadsheet that they tested different types of, all these different components are in that one sample, and it gets really technical. We don't need to know all that. We just need to know the bottom line. Yeah. So good.
Okay, you just kind of brought up something that should all properties have soil reports?
Yeah, I would recommend that, right? Or at least have the soil engineer go visit the site, right? And sometimes he has a map of the whole area, and he says, oh, the area is known to be bad already, bad soil, right? Or the area is known to have good soil. So you may not need to test, but let's do some boring, some samples of where the house foundation is going to be, just for peace of mind. So he might say that. So you might not need a whole full investigation. He may just take boring samples of, let's say you have a 5,000 square foot lot, and your house is going to be sitting on a little section of the lot. So it's going to be laid out. So he's going to make a grid, and the engineer is going to say, I want, 6 different samples tested in this area. You don't test outside where the footprint of the house, because that's not where the foundation is going to be, right? So, and then with that information, he may say, you know what, no further testing is needed. But if information comes back and says, oh, it doesn't look that good, we need to investigate further, then that's the next step. So I would advise that. I wouldn't just say, oh, everything's good and let's not do one. So even if there was a house there before, exact house you're building but newer, I would still recommend a soil test, or at least ask the engineer to come and look, and what does he think, because it's very risky. You don't know what, the house was there for 80 years, let's say. You're going to knock it down and build a brand new one. The soil is probably going to be the same, but probably guarantee when the house was built, there was no soil testing done, right? So, and then if it was a raised foundation, over time sinking, eventually they go up and shim the house and make it level and all that, or maybe they don't, but it's not as bad. So you never know. My personal recommendation is, yeah, get it done or seek advice from a soil engineer.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, next question that's coming here is, how can soil properties like moisture content or compaction levels impact the choice of foundation for a building?
Well, that's a design issue. So let's say the soil uh, study comes and it's very loose soil. Okay, so the designer, the structural engineer has to design accordingly with whatever soil condition it is. Maybe the footing's bigger, maybe the concrete slab is going to be thicker, or he may say, look, I'm not designing anything. I need a portion of this removed and bring in better soil so we can compact it. And then I feel comfortable that the foundation is not going to move. So there's different variations of the theme here. Um, if it's solid, then he's comfortable and he'll just design accordingly, according to what he wants. Now, um, of course, designing a single family house foundation is a lot simpler than designing a foundation for a twin tower 40-story condominium project, right? So there's more time and energy involved, and sometimes the structural engineer may go back and say, look, I read the study, it's missing some things and I need more investigation done. So sometimes that happens.
Okay, I was just thinking about Ala Moana, all along Ala Moana Boulevard and all those new condos coming up there. Definitely must be doing some kind of soil studies out there to figure out what's the best thing to do, yeah.
Yeah, and the soil report looks like if you're old like us, like the yellow pages, right? That thick. It's a lot of reading, a lot of pages turning. But it has to be done because it's a multi-million construction project, and you got all these engineers on the line. If something happens, the building starts sinking, everyone is going to get blamed no matter what. So from the engineer to the project manager to the contractor, subcontractor, and all that. So it's not going to be funny. So
Yep.
Good to take precautions.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and the oceanfront properties too, so you gotta allow for those kind of things, yeah.
Well, in general, I tell everybody all your coastal properties are going to be sinking. It may not be this year, next year, but who knows? So just
Right.
be aware of that.
Okay, let's move on to the next question that we got here is, are there specific soil conditions that require additional testing beyond what's included in the standard soil report?
For the most part, no, but well, let me back up. If the soil study was done, it was really complete, then probably no, unless the engineer decides that he wants additional testing in some specific areas. So maybe when he looks on the grid, he says, hey, this is where the basement parking deck is going to be, and then above that, that's where the tower is. So um, that the load is going to be greater, and there's not enough tests done in that area. So maybe he's going to require additional testing. So that could be a situation. But I mean, there's all these variations on the situation. Every building's different. You don't know. You could have one area where it's just going to be a on grade uh, parking parking lot. Oh, no big deal. There's the load factor is very small, compared to now you're building buildings on this certain area. Now the load is a lot greater, so you gotta consider what the load factor is with respect to the soil condition.
Sounds good. Yeah, it makes sense. It depends on what you're putting up, yeah.
Right.
So you really need them for all those high rises that's coming up, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, the next question that we've got here is, how do soil reports address potential drainage or erosion issues on a construction site?
Well, you look at the characteristics of the soil, and if the soil is such that there's good drainage, then better yet. But if the soil condition is not good and the drainage is going to be poor, or the soil is unstable soil, that's not a good situation to be in. So there's all these factors taking it into consideration. There's some lots that it's really bad. Like if you're in Honolulu, right, back in Kalama Valley, the soil's bad. Nu'uanu, Palolo. I mean, there's areas where it's known to have bad soil already. So that's kind of a given. And people, real estate professionals kind of know that, and they're kind of aware of that. But every lot is different, so don't think that just because one lot the soil's bad, the lot next door the soil's going to be bad too. But usually it's classified in neighborhoods or community areas.
Okay, thank you. We get one more question here, and it's asking, what steps should be taken if discrepancies arise between the soil report findings and on-site conditions?
Okay, so let's say the contractor is excavating, and they happen to run across an area where the soil is not similar to the rest of the area. Okay, then that's a situation where you would stop and bring in the soil engineer to come in and take a look, and then maybe take samples and send it to a lab to determine what the situation is. Because when they do a soil study, they're not investigating every square inch or every square foot or every square yard. They have random points where they're going to take soil samples. So it could be from point A to point B. In between that, right, point A and a half or something, that the soil is not going to be the same. So there's no guarantee. There's also no guarantee of hitting rocks, big boulders and all that. So a condition where the contractor's thinking, oh, it's all going to be black sand, and they start digging it up. Oh, sand is very easy to excavate. It's very simple kind of material. So it's easy for you to just scoop it up. But what if you start scooping and now you hear all these boulders, which makes it harder, right, to excavate? So that may change the situation, right? Or you think that you're going to excavate an area so you can build a building, and all of a sudden now you hit these big boulders. So now what do? We have to move the boulders in order to build part of the building. So different site conditions change, and it could be a lot of unknowns, right? Example could be, I was building this high-rise building, and the contractor excavated, and then he found this huge cave they had no soil in it, and then come to find out it was a old underground stream. So it was like a lava tube. It was hollow. So that kind of stopped the job for a while until we figure it out. I mean, you're not going to build a foundation over a underground stream where it's hollow and there's no support. So it's interesting. Every project has its moments and interesting stories. So good. We got any other comments? I know we're kind of running out of time.
I didn't see any. No new comments or questions here. I don't see. No,
Okay.
we're good. But yeah, and like you say, it seems like every every soil report and soil study for an area is gonna be unique to that whole, wherever it is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Do it.
except, let's say you get soil reports in, a volcano area, volcano subdivision. Every single report's probably the same. They go, oh, volcanic rock,
Yeah,
right? We found cinders or whatever, so it's pretty much similar, but the whole takeaway here is just know what's under the building. And if you're going to build new, make sure you have the proper testing done so you know that the foundation is going to be stable. So appreciate you guys attending and hope to see you at the next webinar. Go to our website, askbuildingexpert.now.site, for more information or other details. Also, if you have any questions that came up during this webinar, feel free to reach out to us or post it on whatever social media you're on, and then we promise to get back to you. We don't mind questions, or if you don't have a question, if you have a comment, that's fine too. So we'll hope to see you at the next webinar. Thank you for attending. Aloha, mahalo.